Unfortunately, we face water scarcity. We face situations, we come across places where there is not sufficient water to meet the demands of the people. So, water scarcity. So, insufficient water resources to meet the water demand. Now, we have already discussed the scenarios where there is water demand. We need water for drinking, cooking, washing, bathing. We need water for the industries and factories to run. We need water for agriculture. The living organisms, they need water inside their body to survive. So, water demand is huge. Now, there has to be that much of water resources to meet this water demand, especially when it comes to the water demand of each and every living organism. Now, as the number of living organisms increase, the water demand also increases. So, now it has been seen that the amount of water resources that are available that are unable to meet the water demand, and that is what we call as water scarcity. So look at this picture. It shows that in this area, only this much area could have little bit of water. There is no other water anywhere else. And this lady is taking up this water in a bucket and trying to use that for her day-to-day activities. Now the question is, what caused water scarcity? Why don't we have sufficient water resources? So one reason is overpopulation. Now the way population is increasing, the resources of water are not increasing, because we already saw that there are some fixed sources of water. Like we see, one of the primary source of water is ocean. Water is very badly dependent on rainfall. Now again, how much rainfall will happen, that is also dependent on a lot of environmental factors. Now, so as a result of all these, the water resources are limited, but the population is continuously increasing. Now when the population increases, the need of water for so many people also increases. So water overpopulation is one main cause behind water scarcity. So when we know that we have limited water resources, we should ensure that people follow family planning. So every family should have 3 to 4 members, not more than that. Okay, so when I say that, I mean that every couple should plan for 1 or 2 kids at the max, not more than that. Because if you have some 10, 15 children, so anyways, you are adding to that population, which results in overpopulation. Secondly, rainfall only during few months in a year. So if you look at the rainfall distribution, so forget about other areas, talk about India itself. So you see that during the monsoon we have heavy rainfall, but during summers we have less rainfall. Again, during winters we have less rainfall. So during monsoon, so much of rainfall, but the other months of the year there is no rainfall. So during those months there are chances of water scarcity. Especially during summer season, we do not have rainfall. That's one thing. The second thing is that due to so much of heat, the consumption of water is more, the usage of water is more. So that both these things together lead to water scarcity. Diversion for high water demanding crops. Now a lot of times people tend to grow those crops more which need more water. For example, certain crops like rice, the paddy fields, if you see, they need more water. So we should also see that, okay, if we do not have sufficient water resources, let us grow high water demanding crops less, and let us try to grow more less water demanding crops. Now, but since a lot of water is being spent only in growing high water demanding crops, that also adds to the water scarcity. So this is also not a nice thing. Population from industrial and urban wastes. Now what happens is, the industries and factories, they have a lot of harmful poisonous wastes, and these wastes are directly dumped into the nearby water bodies like ponds or rivers. This pollutes the water in the nearby river and pond, and as a result, that polluted water becomes unfit for drinking, washing or bathing purposes. So that way also we are losing out good quality of water. So again, now in order to clean that polluted water, it needs to undergo through a huge process of cleaning and purification. So which makes the entire process all the more costly and ineffective. So these are some of the reasons that add to water scarcity. So based on whatever we have discussed so far, I think it is quite clear that why do we need to conserve water? Because the need of water is more. The source of water is less. So with that limited amount of water, we need to satisfy all the water demand. So it is very important that we do not waste water. We need to conserve water because it is a basic necessity of all life forms. All the living organisms need water. Water is limited, as I said. Ensure equal distribution of water to all. Now sometimes what happens is, in certain locality, so many times it happens that in certain localities, there is no water problem. There is too much of water available. Whereas in certain other regions, there is scarcity of water. So we end up seeing that those who get sufficient water, they end up wasting a lot of water. So it is very important that equal distribution of water is ensured in all the regions to all the people. So these are some of the concerns because of which it is very much important that we start conserving water before it is too late. We need to protect our environment because it is not only about conserving water. Water is a natural resource. Water is something which is precious, which is needed for the survival of life forms. So overall, if we want to keep the environment safe, we need to have water. So when we don't have water, we don't have plants. When we don't have plants, we harm the environment in some or the other way. So considering all these reasons and all these factors, it is very much important that we take enough care of conserving water, of storing water and stop wasting it. So here comes the concept of saving water. What can we do from our end in order to save water, in order to stop wasting water? So a couple of things which is under each one of our control. Do not leave the taps open when not in use. So many times it happens that you just washed your hands, you moved out from the wash basin, but the tap is still open. So the water is flowing off due to no reason. Use full loads in washing machine. Just to wash 2 or 3 clothes, you are wasting a lot of water in the washing machine, because normally when you use a washing machine, it takes a lot of water for one round of washing. So if you are using washing machine, make sure that it is in full load. It is completely loaded with garments so that you are able to wash a lot of garments with the same amount of water. Check for leakage in pipes at your home and locality, because if there is a leakage in the pipe, continuously you are wasting some amount of water, and even if you are wasting 1 drop of water in a minute, so considering the entire day, you are actually losing a lot of water. Use a watering can in your garden. Now many a times when you try to water your plants in the garden, you use buckets or mugs or pipes, and from there too much of water gets poured on the plants. So instead of doing that, you can very effectively put water on the plants by using a watering can, because the watering can will have holes, and through those holes only the required amount of water will fall on the plants. Use water efficient shower heads, toilets, taps, etc. So these days we have water efficient shower heads so that it gives water, or it supplies water only in limited amount, so that you do not waste water unnecessarily. So these are some of the points which we can remember in our mind when during our day-to-day activities. Now, when we are talking about conserving water, a very interesting concept is rainwater harvesting. That is how we can utilize rainwater for various purposes. So what is rainwater harvesting? It is collecting rainwater to be used later for various purposes. Now when we say various purposes, it could be for cooking, for washing clothes, for bathing, for cleaning, so variety of purposes. Now when it rains, we get a lot of water. A lot of water gets collected on our rooftops. A lot of water falls on in the balconies of our houses, everywhere. And what happens to that water? It gradually gets into the drain, nearby drains. From there it goes into the river, and then again indirectly we receive the same water. So instead of doing that, how would it be if we directly store that rainwater? We directly store it in our houses, and then we use the same water, we filter it, we clean it, and then we use the same water directly for so many purposes. So in that case, unnecessarily we do not need to do all this indirect process to get the same water back from rivers. Right? So it's a very simple thing that is being done. So what we do is, we keep a storage tank, we design a storage tank, and then we ensure that all the water that falls on the roof of our houses, they get collected in that tank. So that rainwater gets collected, and then that rainwater is cleaned, purified, and then stored there. Now, as and when it is needed, that is supplied to the taps of our houses. So that's such a nice way of utilizing the rainwater directly. So this is how it works. So let's say this is your building, this is the roof of your building. So what you have is, now when it rains, so water flows from the cemented area of the rooftop to this rainwater storage tank. So you have a set of pipelines which are arranged in a specific way, so that whenever it rains here, so the water will pass through these pipes and it will get stored in this rainwater storage. So you have a big tank here to store the rainwater. Now from here it again passes through another tank, and then you have some arrangement where you have a filter. So this filter will remove sand or any other dirt or dust which is present in the water to make the water usable for daily activities. And then water after a certain level is allowed to flow freely into the soil. So then this water passes to the main tank. So then you have the main tank. So if you see here, from the main tank there are two exits. There is one exit this, there is another exit this, which is connected to the pump. So certain amount of water flows into the soil. So when you are allowing water to pass into the soil, so that water is basically being stored as groundwater, which is again equally important for us. So that next time when we dig a well in the nearby area, we get some water. So that way you will increase the groundwater level. But a minimum level of water is maintained in the tank. So whenever, let's say you said that, okay, I'll have, just an example. Let's say you want that, okay, I'll keep X liters, or let's say 500 liters of water should be present in the main tank. So whatever excess amount of water you have after this 500 liters, all that will get into the soil. So they will be allowed to pass into the soil. So there is a valve which is attached here. So you have a valve here which allows water to pass from the main tank into the soil, but it doesn't allow soil to pass into the main tank. So for that purpose you have a valve, so that it allows only unidirectional, only flow of water in one direction, not in both directions. So that's how you maintain clean water storage in the main tank. So anytime you have some amount of water, usable water rather, in the main tank. So now this usable water is taken up by the pump, and then it comes to our kitchen, bathrooms as and when needed. So even if it is an apartment, let's say it's a 10-story building, so the pump is able to pump the water till the 10th floor, 9th floor, 1st floor, 2nd floor, everywhere. So this is an excellent way by which you can directly use rainwater for a lot of your day-to-day activities. Now the question is, why rainwater harvesting? Why do we need to do this? Because the rainwater, otherwise if we don't do this, then what happens to the rainwater? It passes through the drains into the rivers and lakes. So, and then what happens? Again, indirectly we receive the same water from the rivers and lakes. So why do we want to do so much of complex thing? So let's directly use the rainwater. Moreover, in rural areas, it is a very difficult, at least in the urban areas, you have basins in your home, you have taps in your home, so water is very easily accessible. But if you go to the rural areas, small towns, it is very difficult to get water from rivers for household purposes. Fetching water becomes a very tedious task, so many people manually do it. So they carry their buckets till the river and then they carry water till their home. So water gets dirty, it's a long process. There is a long process which is involved to clean the water. So that means it is not a very wise decision to let the rainwater flow into the drains to rivers and lakes. So rainwater harvesting has its own advantages and disadvantages. So in terms of advantage, it is very easy and affordable, not very high maintenance cost. Maintains high groundwater level because we allow some amount of water to flow into the soil. So that means we are also increasing the level of groundwater, which is indirectly going to help us. In terms of these advantages, it is restricted to rainfall which is uncertain. So as I said, that rainfall is very frequent during monsoons, but not during summers. So in summers, rainwater harvesting is not going to be of any use. Regular maintenance needed, else can result in mosquitoes. Now the water that is being stored in the tanks, the tanks need to be cleaned on a regular basis, otherwise stagnant water might lead to mosquitoes, and mosquitoes can result in diseases. So that means these are some of the disadvantages. So it is very important that cleanliness need to be taken care. However, there is a one-time installation cost involved for rainwater harvesting, but otherwise the maintenance cost is not that high. And this is extremely beneficial for agriculture, household purposes as well as industrial purposes. Thank you. Please, so let us quickly have a look at some of the questions. Question number 1. Fill up the blanks in the following. The process of changing of water into its vapor is called evaporation. So it is in this process where liquid water gets converted into water vapor. The process of changing water vapor into water is called just the opposite process of evaporation, that is condensation. No rainfall for a year or more may lead to dash in that region. So when you do not have rainfall at all, what will happen? Lack of rainfall results in drought. Excessive rains may cause floods, which is again just the opposite scenario of drought. Question number 2. State for each of the following whether it is due to evaporation or condensation. Water drops appear on the outer surface of a glass containing cold water. Now when you have a glass of cold water, the surrounding air is warm. So due to that cold water glass, the surrounding water vapor condenses to form liquid water, and those liquid water droplets are seen on the outer surface of the glass. So this is due to condensation. Steam rising from wet clothes when they are ironed. So when you iron them, you are actually supplying heat to the wet clothes. So when you supply heat, the water in those wet clothes get converted into water vapor. So what is happening? Water is getting converted to water vapor by application of heat, and that is called evaporation. Fog appearing on a cold winter morning. So why do you see that fog? That is again nothing but condensation. When the water vapor is being cooled, so that it gets converted into liquid water droplets. So it's condensation. Blackboard dries up after wiping it. So when you wipe a blackboard with a wet cloth, what happens? It suddenly dries up. That's because the water there gets converted to its vapor form, which is evaporation. Steam rising from a hot girdle when water is sprinkled on it. So when you sprinkle some amount of water, what happens? Steam rising. So how the steam rises? Because of this hot girdle, water gets converted into water vapor. So that's again evaporation. Question number 3. Which of the following statements are true? Water vapor is present in air only during the monsoon. That's absolutely false, because water vapor is present in the atmosphere every time. So when you look at the composition of air, you see that it has some amount of water vapor. Water evaporates into air from oceans, rivers and lakes, but not from the soil. So that is again false. Water can evaporate from any surface, be it oceans or soil or anything. The process of water changing into its vapor is called evaporation. Yes, that's true. Evaporation of water takes place only in sunlight. That is again false, because we performed an experiment to show that even in absence of sunlight, water can get converted to water vapor. It is just that the rate of evaporation will be little slower. Water vapor condenses to form tiny droplets of water in the upper layers of air where it is cooler. Yes, that is true. In fact, this is how cloud formation takes place. So as the air keeps moving up, it becomes cooler. So at a certain height, it becomes so cool that condensation takes place. So the water vapor condenses to form tiny droplets of water, and these tiny droplets keep floating in the air, forming clouds. Question number 4. Suppose you want to dry your school uniform quickly. Would spreading it near an angeeti or heater help? If yes, how? So your school uniform is wet. That means it has water. So if you keep it in front of a heater, it will heat the water. So the liquid water will get converted into water vapor. So therefore it will dry up quickly because the heater would increase the rate of evaporation. So the conversion of liquid water to water vapor will happen faster. So in evaporation, what happens? Liquid water gets converted to water vapor, but this conversion will happen faster in presence of heat. So therefore the uniform would dry. Question number 5. Take out a cooled bottle of water from refrigerator and keep it on the table. After some time, you notice a puddle of water around it. Why? Now, why do you have this water around it? So that's because of condensation. Now, as soon as you keep this bottle at room temperature, the surrounding air contains water vapor. So those water vapor comes in contact with this cold bottle. So the water vapor tends to get converted into liquid water. So this liquid water is what you see as this puddle of water. So the water vapor condenses to tiny water droplets. Tiny droplets collectively form a puddle of water around the bottle. So this is the same thing that happens in this case also, where you see tiny droplets of water on the outer surface of the chilled glass. Question number 6. To clean their spectacles, people often breathe out on glasses to make them wet. Explain why the glasses become wet. Okay, so what happens? So when you breathe out, carbon dioxide along with water vapor is released. So some amount of water vapor is also getting released. And this water vapor then collides with the glass and it condenses to form tiny water droplets. And these water droplets make the glass wet. So whenever the water vapor which we are breathing out, that's hot enough. When it comes in contact with the cold glass, it condenses. It gets converted into liquid water. That liquid water is seen in the form of tiny droplets on the glass, which makes the glass wet. Question number 7. How are clouds formed? So as we discussed before, now as we go higher, the temperature decreases. Therefore, as air moves up, the air tends to become cooler. So as it moves up, it becomes cooler. At a certain height, it becomes cool enough for condensation to take place. So condensation takes place. As a result, water vapor that is present in the atmosphere that gets converted into liquid water droplets. These liquid water droplets, being very light, they keep floating in the atmosphere. But when a lot of water droplets combine together to form bigger droplets which become heavier and then they fall as rainfall. So this is how clouds are formed, and then cloud later results in rainfall. So as air moves up, it gets cooler. At large heights, air is cool enough for condensation. Water vapor in the air condenses to form tiny water droplets. Mass of condensed water vapor float in the air as long as they are not too heavy. This mass of condensed water vapor is seen as cloud. Question number 8. When does a drought occur? So when there is no rainfall for a very long time, then drought occurs. So if there is no rainfall or very less rainfall since a very long period of time, that's when we experience a drought. So some of the very bad consequences of drought are plants start dying, agriculture is badly impacted, therefore there is no food, people start dying of hunger, and it really impacts huge to different forms of life. The groundwater level decreases, water level in the ponds, lakes, rivers decreases. In fact, many ponds and lakes starts drying up. Soil becomes dry, plants get affected. So these are some of the very negative consequences of a drought. So with this, we have reached towards the end of this lesson, and I hope that this lesson on water would have helped you. So this lesson would have also taught you how you can contribute from your end to save water, to conserve water, how crucial water is for different life forms. So I hope this lesson would have helped you. So see you all in the next lesson.
Thank you. Please